Welcome to Knowledge Hub. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon for more breaking updates. Former President Donald Trump erupted in anger after a major legal defeat for his economic agenda. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit ruled in August 2025 that Trump had overstepped his authority with his sweeping new tariff plan. This struck at the core of his America First platform. Trump immediately lashed out on social media, accusing the judges of sabotaging national prosperity and security. He warned his followers that the court's decision would destroy the United States and turn it into a third-world nation. Trump claimed the ruling would cost the country hundreds of billions of dollars. His dramatic language is classic Trump, meant to rally his base and pressure the institutions he sees as obstacles. He framed the judges as political enemies, undermining his vision for America. Many see this as an attempt to influence the next stage of the legal fight, now heading to the Supreme Court. Trump's rhetoric is aimed at conservative justices, urging them to view the case as a matter of national survival. He's turning a complex constitutional debate into a test of loyalty for his supporters. At the heart of the conflict, presidential power. The lower court found the president cannot unilaterally impose taxes. Tariffs are, in effect, taxes on imports. The Constitution gives Congress, not the president, the power to tax and regulate commerce. The court's ruling is a direct threat to Trump's authority, setting up a historic showdown. What are tariffs, and why do they matter to you? Simply put, a tariff is a tax on imported goods. If you buy a TV made abroad, and there's a 10% tariff, the importer pays that tax, then passes the cost to you. That TV now costs more at the store. Tariffs are meant to protect domestic industries by making foreign goods pricier. The idea, if imports cost more, you might buy local instead, supporting homegrown businesses and jobs. The government also collects revenue from tariffs. But there's a catch. Tariffs raise prices for everyone, not just importers. Everyday items like cars, electronics, clothes, and food can all get more expensive. While some industries benefit, others suffer from higher costs for imported parts. Other countries often retaliate, slapping tariffs on our exports, hurting American businesses abroad. The result? A complicated economic tug-of-war that can drive up the cost of living. Economists warn that broad tariffs often do more harm than good. So, while tariffs aim to protect jobs, they can end up costing consumers and the economy. In early 2025, Trump's administration launched a sweeping new tariff policy. He announced massive tariffs, 10% to 50%, on nearly all goods imported into the U.S., affecting products from over 70 countries. Dubbed the Liberation Day tariffs, this move escalated the trade wars of his first term. Trump declared a national emergency, invoking the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, IEPA. He cited two threats: fentanyl trafficking from countries like China and Mexico, and the U.S. trade deficit. The tariffs, he argued, would force fairer trade and bring manufacturing jobs back to America. Trump claimed the U.S. had been exploited for decades and needed a tough response. The Liberation Day branding suggested he was freeing the economy from bad trade deals. The move was instantly controversial. Economists and business leaders warned of severe consequences, arguing Trump misused the IEEPA to bypass Congress. Critics said he was imposing a massive tax on Americans without legislative approval. The legal challenge was immediate, questioning whether the president could act alone on such sweeping economic measures. The stage was set for a fierce constitutional battle. Legal challenges to Trump's tariffs began almost immediately. Businesses and states argued he had gone too far. In August 2025, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit ruled against the administration in a decisive 7-4 vote. The court said the power to impose tariffs is a power to tax, and that belongs to Congress. The Constitution gives Congress, not the president, the authority to tax and regulate commerce. The judges ruled that the IEEPA does not give the president a blank check for sweeping tariffs. The decision was a major win for those who sued, arguing Trump was violating the separation of powers. The court's ruling was a powerful check on executive authority, even in a declared emergency. However, the tariffs stayed in place while the administration appealed to the Supreme Court. The lower court's decision set up a constitutional showdown. The central question: can the president impose taxes without Congress's consent? Trump's tariffs hit businesses and families hard, fast. Companies relying on imports saw costs soar overnight. Educational toy makers faced £100 million in extra tariffs in 2025 alone. Small businesses like Tariff projected losses of over £1.2 million. Many firms had to absorb costs, cut jobs, or raise prices for customers. Everyday items from coffee to electronics became more expensive. J.M. Smucker raised coffee prices by over 20% in a year, blaming tariffs. For families, weekly shopping bills climbed, squeezing household budgets. The tariffs acted as a broad consumption tax, fueling inflation. Businesses struggled to plan, adding tariff clauses to contracts to cope with uncertainty. The instability made it hard to invest or grow. Economists agree, the tariffs slowed economic growth and strained trade relationships. The real-world impact was immediate and painful for many Americans. As the case heads to the Supreme Court, both sides are making high-stakes arguments. Trump's legal team insists the IEPA gives the president broad power to regulate imports, including tariffs, during emergencies. They argue the president needs flexibility to protect national security and economic interests. Limiting this power, they say, would weaken the U.S. on the world stage. Opponents, including major businesses and states, argue the Constitution gives Congress the power to tax and regulate trade. They say the IEPA was never meant to let a president rewrite trade policy alone. The challengers warn that upholding Trump's actions would set a dangerous precedent, letting any president impose taxes without Congress. They stress this case is about preserving the constitutional balance of power. The Supreme Court's decision will define the limits of presidential authority. The Supreme Court will hear the case in November 2025 with huge implications for American government. The justices face a choice: expand presidential power during emergencies, or reaffirm Congress's control over taxes and trade. A ruling for Trump would set a precedent, letting future presidents use emergencies to enact major economic policies alone. Supporters say this gives the executive needed tools. Critics warn it erodes checks and balances. A ruling against Trump would uphold Congress's authority and limit the president's reach. The outcome will shape the economy, the price of goods, and the balance of power for years to come. Will trade policy be set by Congress or by executive order? The nation awaits the answer.